coming. We had a really nice event yesterday in Northeast Maryland, and it was a bluegrass picking event. It was more of an open party where we had bluegrass pickers all over the place, which Mom loved. And this is going to be, a different kind of idea that we had. I originally thought about this for having this in my home, and then you see how many of you there are. Probably great. So I'm really grateful that we found this place. I mean, I've seen it pretty much every day, but the fact that they have it available. It was an old, it was the family who ran a mill, or owned a mill nearby, built this. And there used to be a canal and a pond and everything. The canal is now the JFK Parkway, the pond is now apartments, and at least we got this. So it's nice that the town lets us run. I guess I just, first of all, I want to start by saying I just feel the love in this room. I hope I can make it through without ugly crying. But it's palpable, and I appreciate you guys all being here. And I just want to say that I'm grateful. Mom living 89 years is really awesome, and you can't ask for much more than that. And she lived the life that she wanted. I think she really, she's a person who just kind of always did the right thing, always strove to make others happy, or make shoot out that energy that that we as her kids, of course, but I think everybody kind of feels the same way about her kind of, upbeat personality. So yeah, I'm also grateful for the way that she passed. In Florida, they know how to die. It was a really nice experience, as awful as it was, to be able to spend a few days with her, the kids, everybody there. It was very familiar. It felt like, she was just kind of in the next room. She was, she was a little out of it, obviously, and not really participating, but she was there. And there's more laughter than tears. And she, you expected any minute she'd wake up and say, "Oh, you kids," or something, like she has over the years. So it was, as a sad experience as it was nice and it was comforting. And during that time, it kind of gave me the opportunity. We spent days there, trying to kind of look through her pictures, pictures of her, trying to make the slideshow, and what I knew was coming, and just kind of organize in my mind, her life. What were the important things about her life? What influenced her to be who she was? And I'm usually, my nature is very modest and don't brag and something, but I'm going to say she was extraordinary. I mean, she was an extraordinary person. And you think, what made her that way? Was she just, was that nature? Was it nurture? Was it, So I thought about, the important things in her life. So I want to kind of go over those. And hope you guys are comfortable, because I'm going to be here a little while.
We're fine.
So she was born in Evanston, Illinois, 1934, the middle of the Depression. And she was born into very comfortable circumstances. She lived with her grandparents, actually, her father's family, the Jeffersons. I think part of her empathy comes from the fact that her father was an alcoholic. She was very open about that. Not telling her things she wouldn't say herself. And I think she was kind of the peacemaker between her parents. And if you look at the two, she was also the first grandchild on both sides. So I think that got her comfortable in the spotlight, which she was, which served her well in later life. So she also there was a bit of a contrast between the two families. So you had the Jeffersons on the north side of Chicago in Evanston, and the Weekses, her mother's people, from the south side of Chicago. Now, they had moved there from Texas. I think the story was that the father, we called Dutch. Dutch owned a bank or something. They moved from Texas. They owned a bank. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I think the bank went under, and the business partner kind of made out with a lot of the money. So Dutch spent years paying back the people who were harmed by that. So they were very hard workers. So you have the Jeffersons on the north side of Chicago, 3 sons, including my grandfather. The Weekses on the south side of Chicago, 3 daughters. My grandmother was the oldest of the daughters, and they had a really hard work ethic. So they made great lives for themselves just out of sheer hard work, each of them. We were just talking, they were separated by 17 years. My grandmother was the oldest, and I just want to point out Claudia Reese and Patty Reese are here, daughters of the youngest daughter, Louise. And they came all the way from Texas, so I'm really happy they're here representing from mom. That's kind of the feeling that I get, that there was a lot going on that she was tuned into, so she was very empathetic. Her dad's alcoholism really broke her heart. He wasn't abusive or anything, but he would just disappear for weeks at a time. And she said she adored him, so it really, it was really hard on her. Go through the years, World War II hits, her dad goes off to the Navy, her mother goes to Columbia University for library science and gets her degree, and my mom is shipped to living with her aunt, one of the aunts, Pat, in Pennsylvania. So she was very close to her aunts, Pat and Louise, and this is one reason why. And at the time her grandmother finished school in Columbia, she had a choice of where she could go. So she kind of enlisted my mom to help her out with the choice, and they chose together with George School, this Quaker school, and it's kind of a very fancy boarding school in Pennsylvania. So she went there for high school, and she met, where is she? Eleanor. She met Eleanor there. Eleanor Madgen, her longest standing friend of 75 years. So we're very grateful for her sister. Lots of ups and downs over those years, but they've had a great, tight friendship. She also she had another very good friend, Angel Kings, but she also went to school with George Siegel, the actor, and she says, I don't know if these stories are true, but we believe. She said that she was the lead. They were the leads in a Shakespearean play or something. And George Siegel's on stage and he forgets his lines, so she had to kind of whisper. It's ironic because he was a movie star. Anyway, so in college she went to University of Delaware, and her mom moved to Upton, Maryland, to become the chief librarian of the Cecil County Library. She had a bunch of good friends in that, from the University of Delaware. The people that we call aunts and uncle are the people from that school. They're not real aunts and uncles. So we had Aunt Jen and Aunt Bobby, and then she had 10 other friends that she kept in touch with lifelong. And she used to go to the shore, every summer, and they'd have this great reunion. So she had a great college experience, and her mother at her library had a great books discussion group, and in walks my dad. And my mom will say, has said many times over the years that she couldn't look at him because, he's a handsome man, but she looked at him and she saw her future, and it scared her. She wanted to be a diplomat. She was studying international relations. She wanted to travel the world, and she's like, I can't be with this guy because she chose him, thankfully for us, for our sakes. And they were married before she even graduated. And a year later, started popping out the first of his kids. Dorothy next, me next, and then Marshall. And obviously that's the context that we know her from, being a mother. And she was, everyone thinks they have a great mother. We're no exception. She was wonderful, she was supportive, she showed up for everything, every silly school play we had, she was there. And she was not just that way to us, she was that way to everybody, our friends. We had a very unusual house, a lot of partying, a lot of late nights. After they went to bed, we were up all night with friends. Friends would stay over. Michelle Gadget is here to witness for that. we had, and then a lot of the friends moved in. You know, they would be kicked out of their homes or whatever, and she would gladly take them in. So we had a really unusual but great childhood and growing up period. Trying to think if I'm forgetting anything. Okay, so the 90s. So we started pairing off, and Mom, you know, formed close relationships with Andrea, with Susan, with Marianne, with Billy too. She loved everybody. These are people that she just wanted in her lives as much as she wanted us. She became a grandmother. Andrea has 2 daughters from a previous marriage, and then Emily was born, and Becky, and that was a joy for us, for her. She was able to read all the books that she had from her childhood that she read to us. Now she could read to the grandkids, so that made her very happy. And a big thing happening in the 90s was the Jefferson, what she always called the Jefferson thing. The other thing that I didn't say is growing up. Part of the thing with growing up with the Jeffersons is they were hiding a secret. The secret was that her grandfather Carl was the great grandson of a slave. The president and the enslaved woman Sally Hemings, President Thomas Jefferson. Something that they decided not to pass on to the next generation, which is the most ironic thing, because the person who was best suited to receive that information was my mother. When she did, she shouted it from the highest mountain. She was proud of it. You obviously have to assume they were trying to hide the African American portion of the family, or that reality from their lives. But she was thrilled with it, and got to the point where sometimes I'd say, "Mom, the bank teller doesn't need to know the whole Jefferson." The other thing is she was named after Julia. The first Julia was her grandfather Carl's grandmother. Now this first Julia raised Carl because his own mother had died. So it was very, it was basically everything was hiding in plain sight, the whole Jefferson family. But once she found out in the 70s, there wasn't a lot of publicity back then, but it was in the 90s that things really, came to a head when my uncle gave his DNA, matched the DNA of another Jefferson descendant, male line descendant, and along with the historical evidence provided by, among others, Annette Gordon-Reed, proved to the world that they were, the affair actually did happen, and we were descended from that. That changed Mom's life more than anyone. To start, there was a bunch of news coverage. We had news vans in our house around the block. And Susan says, after a few weeks of this kind of publicity, she says, "This is an episode of Oprah." So, Oprah back then was the ultimate. She was the ultimate. So Susan called the Oprah show, and they said, "Okay, let's do this episode." So we walk. They flew us to Chicago. I was on Good Morning America, so they said, "Okay, well, you can be on. Your mom can be on, and then our cousin Mary." So we thought, "Oh wow, this is going to be like all about us, and we're so important and everything." Flying us to Chicago, we got a suite. And we could walk into the studio, they put makeup, and we kind of heard, we might be meeting the descendants of the African American community who was still, obviously our ancestor moved into the white world, our ancestor's brother stayed in the black world and, had children, etc. And they all knew the story, we did not. So we thought, okay, we're going to meet some of the cousins, and this is about us. And we got there, and we're all makeup on and everything, and the producer says, "Okay, well, you're going to sit here." We're like, "Oh wait, aren't we supposed to be on stage?" So no, you're here. Okay. Turns out there was a bunch of family in the first row. Lucian Truscott and Shay Banks Young were on stage, and along with Doug and Lucian's sister. So the focus of the story became about them. But the importance was that we met Lucian, we met Shay, we went out to lunch, we had a just a great time. We bonded as family right away. And Mom took up the mantle of that, of the, kind of the leadership of that family. Lucian invited us to the Monticello meeting that was happening the next spring. And we went thinking, okay, this is going to be great. We're going to show America, racial unity, and it didn't happen that way. A lot of Jeffersons were not open to us, but many were, including Trini Anderson, who is here. We kind of created our own family out of the Jeffersons who actually believed the truth and those who didn't. We met our cousin Shannon Lanier, Jane Feldman, Chandra, Shannon's wife, a lot of others, too many to mention, but through the years we've gone back to Monticello every few years. But at that point in Mom's life, she just felt like, she was in her mid-60s. She said, a lot of people my age are slowing down, and my life has just become vital. She's interviewed on TV shows, and she bonded with Shay to the point where she and Shay took a tour of colleges and would have it like a lecture series that they called Conversations in Black and White, and they were very successful. They were talking about writing a book, and they became sisters. And they had some difficult conversations. Shay, as people who know her, is one to push the envelope a little, and Mom did not back down. She had these great conversations that they would have in front of an audience. So she was very very happy about that. So my dad passed away in 2006. She moved to Little Falls, where she met another good friend, Katria, who was here. Other friends that she's met through us, Doris is sitting next to Katria. She's met her through Emily. Bonded very well with her. The other thing that I forgot to talk about is her career. She wasn't just like our mom, and that was the focus. She also had her own life. She had her own career. She went to the Art Students League. She did artwork. She later got her graduate degree from Rutgers University. She was going for her doctorate. She decided to go into business, and she started selling office furniture door to door, knocked on people's doors, met the receptionists, charmed them, got a successful career. And she met another great friend, Dawn Groh, who was here. Anyway, Dawn traveled with my parents several big trips. They took to Alaska and to out west.
And Finland.
And Finland, of course, yeah. We all went to Finland, which Mom loved. Anyway, yeah. So my dad passed in 2006. A few years later, she met Al, her partner, for several years, and she got introduced to Boca Raton, Florida. They used to go out in the winters. Al passed away, and Mom and Marshall decided to move down there, which I can't even express to you how blessed we are to have Marshall taking care of her for the last so many years. I know, and that's how he feels, and that's so much the better. But I know for a fact that he extended her years by several years, her life by several years. She was happy. She became more cautious. She had some falls. She became more cautious about going out, but she was just happy in her little nest. Marshall doing his artwork, her critiquing, his latest piece, some of her work. She was wonderful. So that's So we, she unfortunately had a bad fall that we had to put her in hospice, but it was a fitting end to a life that I think that she chose, that she would have been happy with. Anyway, I feel like at the Oscars when the music plays you off, probably play the music. Better hand, I could talk all day about the band, as you can tell. And the idea of all this is to whoever wants to come up and say, you want to say 2 words, you want to go on as long as I did, whatever. That's the spirit of this gathering. So, again, I want to thank you. Other notes. Obviously enjoy the food here. We're going to have anyone who wants to come back and continue the conversation. We're going to be at my house We've ordered some of the local delicacies of northern New Jersey, chicken parm and so you're welcome to share that with us. We'll have some wine and some nice conversation. So anyway, thanks again for being here, and Jeff, if you want to take